Okay, and that about does it. All right, let's make a video explaining diabetes. Are you guys ready?
I am so psyched. Let's do this.
Okay, how about you? What? Hello W3 and welcome to the first official episode of Ask the Veterinarian. I'm your host, Dr. Chris Johnson. Since each one of these YouTube videos will be on a different medical subject, I thought it might be a good idea to start each one with some sort of quirky catchphrase. And since this is on diabetes, a couple of ideas came to mind. Diabetes, a sweet, sweet problem. Dumb. Diabetes, an insulin deficiency, the body's physiological response, and the diagnosis and treatment of the disease. Dumber. Give me a D, give me an I, give me an A. Give me a break. Then I decided that maybe it might be best just to start with a nice clean title page. I love that picture because it illustrates that obesity can lead to diabetes in animals just like it can lead to diabetes in humans. Now, there can be other reasons for diabetes. You can have genetic aspects and traumatic aspects, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But let's get into diabetes as a disease. Now, in animals, there are two basic types of diabetes that we deal with: diabetes insipidus and diabetes mellitus. Diabetes insipidus is a very rare form of diabetes, and it's one we're not going to talk about. I've only personally seen it once in the last 15 to 20 years. Diabetes mellitus, on the other hand, is the one that we normally deal with. That is the insulin-dependent diabetes. And to really get into this disease, well, we got to do the science. Now, to really understand diabetes, we have to be introduced to the pancreas. The pancreas is an amazing little organ. Not only does it produce digestive enzymes used by the intestines, but it also produces a number of hormones, insulin being one of the most important. Now, insulin allows the body to take glucose, or sugar, and convert it into the energy the body needs to function. Now, I could spend a lot of time going through the chemistry and physiology of this process, but nobody really wants to see that.
Oh, I would really like to see that.
I take that back. Most of us don't really want to see that.
Spoil sport.
So what happens if there's no insulin? Well, sugar keeps on getting to higher and higher levels in the body until finally the body says, I can't take it anymore. And it starts trying to figure out any way to get rid of it, and a lot of it kicks out into the urine. Now stay with me, because now we have to go back to high school biology and talk about osmosis.
Oh, I know.
There's a surprise.
Osmosis, the diffusion of a solvent through a semi-permeable membrane from a dilute to a more concentrated solution.
No, I didn't get that either.
Oh, I get it, dude. Like water goes from where there's more water to where there's less water.
I think that's the first intelligent thing he's ever said.
All right, Metallica rules.
I take that back. That might be the only intelligent thing he's ever said. Anyway, as we've just learned, because sugar is such a heavy molecule, when the body kicks it out into the urine, it tends to pull water with it. And that gives you the first classic clinical sign of diabetes, increased urinating. Well, if you urinate a lot, naturally you become dehydrated. And so the body responds by drinking a lot, which is the second classic clinical sign, increased drinking. Now, even though there's tons of sugar there, the body can't convert it to energy. Remember, insulin is the key that turns sugar into energy. And because of that, and since the body still needs energy, it says, where am I going to get it? I need to eat. So you get the classic third clinical sign of diabetes, increase eating. But paradoxically, even though you're eating a lot, the body still can't use the sugar. So it starts to utilize the body fat or the body stores that it has to produce the energy it needs. And then you get the fourth classic clinical sign, weight loss. So you have the four classic clinical signs of diabetes: increased urinating, increased drinking, increased eating, and paradoxically, weight loss. All right, well that finishes the science. Let's take a break.
He's so fluffy, I'm gonna die! It's so fluffy!
Okay, so you see these clinical signs in your animal. Now what do? Well, obviously the first thing you need to do is go directly to your regular vet who's going to run some blood work and also a urinalysis. And the urinalysis is very, very important for a couple of reasons. To begin with, there are other diseases that can have the same kind of clinical signs as diabetes, such as kidney disease or Cushing's disease. And it's very important to differentiate between these because the treatments can be so very different. Secondly, cats have a very unusual problem that if they get stressed, their blood sugar jumps through the roof. And nothing stresses a cat more than coming to see the veterinarian. So if you do blood work on a cat and you see a high blood sugar but a normal urine sugar, it's probably just stress. If, however, you see a high blood sugar and a high urine sugar, you're probably dealing with diabetes. For dogs, however, we don't usually see this stress high blood sugar, so if you have a high blood sugar in a dog, it's probably diabetes. The other reason for doing urinalysis is to look for something called ketones. There is a condition called diabetic ketoacidosis, and what this is sort of end-stage diabetes. If you have an animal that's been a diabetic for a while, what happens is it's as they break down the body stores, in order to change the body fat into energy, it creates acid. And this will throw off the normal, very, very delicate balance of acid-base in the body. When this happens, the animals become very, very sick. And it's important to know if you're bordering on this or not to determine how aggressively you have to do the treatment to begin with. So what do we need to do when it comes to treatment? Well, there's a whole bunch of treatment options, but before we get there, one little thing I want to start doing is guess the movie. I'm going to throw a movie quote in here, and whoever gets it right by answering at the thing below, I'll give you a shout out in the next video. Here's the movie quote.
Hello. My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die.
I know, pretty easy, but I figured I'd start easy and get more complex as these videos start rolling along. So treatment for diabetes. Well, we have a lot of different treatment options that are out there depending on the individual animal and the individual species. To begin with, some animals we can control with diet. Purina makes a food called DM that I have successfully been able to maintain cats on without any kind of other treatment options. The biggest problem with this is that not a lot of cats will respond very favorably to this, and many times it's only for a short period of time. Cats can be very difficult to control with diabetes. Dogs are a lot easier. So I will a lot of times start my cats with the DM food, but if it doesn't work out after the next couple of weeks, I usually have to change over to other options. Glucophage is an oral diabetic medication used in humans. Not effective in animals whatsoever. Don't even ask about it. It's not worth going there. The most common thing that we have to do with animals besides controlling the diet is insulin therapy. And that means, as an owner, you're going to have to give injections on a daily basis.
Needles. Why does it always have to be needles?
There are two types of insulin we routinely use in veterinary medicine. PZI, which is a long-acting once-a-day insulin, and the Lente Ultra Lente groups of insulin, which are a shorter-acting twice-a-day insulin. Now, PZI was off the market for a while, but for the last couple years it has been on the market, and a lot of veterinarians tend to like this. It's a once-a-day injection, works pretty effectively in cats, not as effectively in dogs. I personally have always used an insulin called NPH, which is a twice-a-day insulin, and I use that in both my dogs and cats. But it's an individual veterinary preference, and whatever your veterinarian feels comfortable with, you should feel comfortable with. So the vet's going to start your animal on a dose of insulin, either once or twice a day. And after the animal's been on this dose for about 2 or 3 weeks, they're going to recommend you bring the animal back into the hospital for blood work. And they're going to either recommend a blood sugar curve or a fructosamine. The blood sugar curve has been the gold standard for many, many years. What you do is you have the animal in the hospital, you give the insulin when they come in, and you do a blood sugar every couple of hours. And you plot a graph to determine how it looks. You like to see the highs around 200 to 250 and the lows around 100 to 150. And when you plot it out, what you want to see is a nice, even graph that looks something like this. For those of you who can remember back to high school, it's called a sine curve. Not many people really know what that is.
Oh, I know.
We know you know! You're so smart! You're so intelligent! You're so in need of a girlfriend. Okay. Once your veterinarian gets the information back from the blood sugar curve, they'll be able to suggest to you if any changes need to be made in the treatment protocol. I went all fuzzy and I don't know why. The other testing option is to do what's called a fructosamine. A blood sugar curve is very accurate, but it's only as accurate as the data that we get out of it. And every individual blood sugar point along that curve only indicates what the blood sugar is in the animal at that particular time. It can change minute to minute. If outside sources affect the blood sugar, such as stress in cats, it can skew all the data and make us get false impressions of how the insulin is working. A fructosamine takes a snapshot of the blood sugar over a 2 to 3 week time period. And while it's not as accurate as a blood sugar curve, it does give me a much better idea of what's going on when I'm concerned that stress might skew the data in a blood sugar curve, especially in cats. Now, we're not just going to do insulin therapy in these animals, we're also going to do dietary changes. We talked about the DM diet from Purina. Other companies have other kinds of foods that we use, and it's very important that these animals be treated not only with insulin, but also in a dietary measure as well. Just like in humans, diet plays a huge role in any diabetic animal. Now, here's the bad part about diabetes. Most animals, when they're diagnosed as a diabetic, are able to be maintained for a period of time, let's say anywhere from 6 months to a couple of years. Cats are a lot harder to maintain. They don't tend to live as long. Dogs are a little bit easier to maintain, but the average lifespan is about 6 months to 2 years, like I said. And there can be other complications. Cataracts are very, very common. Hypoglycemia, low blood sugar, is a very common problem and something you need to discuss with your veterinarian if you ever see clinical signs of that. But generally speaking, diabetes is a disease that can be treated. And if you're willing to put the time and effort into it, I think you'll be very, very happy with the outcome for either your dog or your cat. Well, that about wraps it up for diabetes. I hope this episode has been both enlightening and entertaining for you. I also hope that you now have a broad, basic understanding of diabetes as a disease, its diagnosis, and its treatment options. However, just like anything else you read or see on the web, even if it comes from me, always touch base with your regular veterinarian. They are going to be your primary care physician, and they are going to make the best decision for what's best for you and your animal friend. Next episode, we're going to talk about canine parvovirus, a disease near and dear to my nose. And if you've ever had a dog that had parvovirus, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So until then, this has been Dr. Chris Johnson leaving you with these parting words of wisdom. If you feed, play, and take care of a dog, they think you are a god. But if you feed, play, and take care of a cat, why, they think they're the god.
Nice reflection of the monitor in your glasses, dude.
Hey, don't blame me. Talk to the cheapo over here that won't buy a real video camera.
Yeah, leave him a... Wait a minute.